As long as you're going to be thinking anyway, think big. With this simple yet powerful phrase, Donald Trump captured a mindset that would shape not only his career, but his entire life story. In a world where most of us are bound by fear, doubt, and the comfort of small ambitions, let me ask you this. Have you ever truly dared to think big? This question is more than just motivational. It is a challenge, one that Trump himself embraced from the very beginning. From his humble roots as a boy growing up in Queens, New York, to rising as a billionaire whose name is recognized across the globe, Trump built his empire on the foundation of this philosophy. Think big was not just a motto for him. It was a way of turning dreams into skyscrapers, risks into rewards, and setbacks into comebacks. His journey stands as a striking example of how daring to dream beyond limits can redefine what is possible. Before we dive into this captivating story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our exclusive stories about power, wealth, and the hidden truths behind the world's most talked about figures. The phrase "think big" did not emerge as a passing slogan or a catchy line for headlines. It was born out of Donald Trump's own experiences, sharpened through years of trial, risk, and relentless ambition. In 2007, Trump co-authored the book Think Big and Kick Ass, where he laid out the raw, unapologetic version of his philosophy. The book was not simply about business deals or financial strategies. It was about a mindset, a way of living that refuses to accept limitations. In its pages, Trump recounted how time and again people around him urged caution. Advisors, competitors, and even friends often told him to be reasonable, to play it safe, to settle for less. But for Trump, the very idea of shrinking his vision to fit someone else's sense of reality felt like surrender. Instead, he insisted on pushing the boundaries, on thinking bigger than anyone dared, even when it meant risking failure. Trump's stories from that period highlight how Think Big was not just about chasing billions, it was about breaking out of the invisible walls that fear and doubt create. He believed that if your goals didn't intimidate you, they weren't big enough. And more importantly, he argued that thinking small was a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you limit your dreams, you limit your results. In contrast, daring to dream beyond conventional limits forces creativity, courage, and persistence to rise to the surface. For Trump, Think Big became the cornerstone of his empire-building years. Whether it was envisioning skyscrapers that would redefine city skylines, taking bold risks in branding his name across industries, or stepping into the unpredictable world of politics, the pattern remained the same. He refused to accept smallness. This philosophy carried him from being a boy in Queens to becoming a global symbol of audacity. More than business strategy, Think Big was his personal declaration of independence, a refusal to live within the boxes that society, critics, or even circumstances tried to impose. Donald Trump's philosophy of Think Big did not suddenly appear when he became a billionaire or wrote his books. It was seeded in his earliest years. Born in Queens, New York, into the powerful household of Fred Trump, one of the city's most successful real estate developers, young Donald was surrounded by the language of construction deals and ambition from the very beginning. Yet even within this privileged environment, he was not content to simply follow in his father's footsteps quietly. From childhood, he displayed a restless energy, a refusal to be ordinary. Teachers and relatives often noted that he was not satisfied with blending into the background. He wanted to stand out, to be noticed, to do something larger than life. His father, Fred Trump, was disciplined, practical, and conservative in business. He built middle-class housing and amassed wealth by thinking carefully and cautiously. But young Donald absorbed those lessons with a twist. While he respected his father's achievements, he also felt the pull to surpass them, to make his mark in a way that no one could ignore. This tension between inheritance and individuality became the fertile ground where Think Big began to grow. That restless drive carried into his education. When his teenage behavior became too unruly for traditional schooling, Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy. There, in the strict competitive environment of military discipline, his character hardened. Instead of shrinking under pressure, he thrived. He embraced the hierarchy, the drills, and the demand for leadership. More importantly, he began to see himself not as a boy living in his father's shadow, but as a young man preparing to lead on his own terms. The academy became a stage where his ambition could no longer be hidden. It was there he started to dream of a future where his name, not just his father's, would command respect. From these early years, it was clear Donald Trump was not born to be content with enough. He wanted more, he wanted bigger, and he wanted to prove that his destiny would extend far beyond the safe successes that had defined Fred Trump's world. When Donald Trump set his eyes on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, he was not simply scouting for land, he was chasing a dream that many dismissed as impossible. At the time, New York was already crowded with towers controlled by seasoned developers and powerful financial interests. To imagine that a young man from Queens could step into this arena and leave his mark seemed to many not just ambitious but delusional. Yet this was exactly where Trump's philosophy of think big took shape in brick, steel, and glass. The vision was bold to build a skyscraper that would not only stand among the most prestigious addresses in the world, but redefine what luxury, style, and ambition looked like in New York City. The proposed site at 56th Street and Fifth Avenue was iconic but burdened with challenges. Financing such a colossal project was daunting, especially for a developer still proving himself on the grand stage. Banks hesitated, competitors doubted him, and skeptics in the press called it reckless. Even within real estate circles, whispers spread that Trump was reaching too far, that his youth and inexperience would eventually expose him. But Trump thrived in that environment of doubt. Instead of retreating, he doubled down on his vision. He negotiated fiercely secured creative financing and pushed through layers of bureaucracy and resistance. Where others saw walls, he saw opportunities to break through. His persistence turned critics into cautious observers and then into reluctant admirers. The more obstacles that appeared, the more determined he became to prove that thinking big was not naive, it was necessary. When Trump Tower finally opened its doors in 1983, it was more than just another building, it was a declaration. Rising 58 stories of bronze-tinted glass and polished grandeur, the tower shimmered on Fifth Avenue as a physical embodiment of Trump's audacity. Inside, cascading waterfalls, marble floors, and gilded accents redefined what luxury meant to the public. It became a destination not just for the wealthy, but for tourists from around the world, eager to catch a glimpse of the space that captured headlines and embodied excess. Trump Tower was more than real estate. It was theater. It symbolized the American dream in skyscraper form, the idea that someone with vision and daring could rise above doubt, create something unforgettable, and carve his name permanently into the skyline. For Donald Trump, it was proof that his guiding philosophy, think big, was not just words on a page or motivational talk. It was a blueprint for life. Every beam of steel, every pane of glass, every chandelier inside the tower testified to the power of refusing to think small. Over time, Trump Tower transcended architecture. It appeared in films, television shows, and the pages of glossy magazines. It became synonymous with wealth, ambition, and the pursuit of greatness. For Trump, it was the crown jewel of his empire, the building that transformed him from a developer into a household name, from a son following in Fred Trump's footsteps into a man who had built something entirely his own. Trump Tower remains to this day the most tangible monument to his belief that greatness requires boldness, that daring to dream beyond reason is the only way to change reality. In its reflection gleaming against the New York sky lies the living proof of what it means to think big. By the late 1980s and into the 1990s, Donald Trump had already secured his place in Manhattan's skyline with Trump Tower. But think big was never meant to stop at one building, one city, or even one industry. True to his philosophy, Trump expanded outward with the same restless ambition that had carried him from Queens to Fifth Avenue. Real estate remained the foundation, but the Trump name soon found itself stamped on casinos in Atlantic City, luxury hotels across the globe, championship golf courses, airlines, and even bottled water. To Trump, the name itself became the brand, a symbol of wealth and ambition, and he worked tirelessly to transform that brand into a worldwide empire. The risks were enormous. Casinos, for instance, were notoriously volatile, with markets swinging wildly and competition running fierce. Many advised Trump to tread carefully to keep his focus narrow and manageable. But think big left no room for small, safe bets. For Trump, if there was a market to dominate, he wanted in, and he wanted in at the top. Hotels were not simply meant to be accommodations. They were to be palaces of marble and gold. Golf courses were not just for sport. They were to be global destinations carrying the Trump crest. Even when these ventures courted controversy or financial strain, the sheer scale of his vision ensured that the Trump brand remained larger than life. It was this outsized presence that prepared him for his most unexpected stage television. In 2004, The Apprentice premiered, bringing Trump into millions of American living rooms each week. The show was more than entertainment, it was a masterclass in branding. Trump was no longer just a businessman behind skyscraper walls. He was now a cultural figure, complete with his signature catchphrase, "You're fired." The series blended competition drama and mentorship, but at its core it showcased Trump as the embodiment of his own credo, someone who thought bigger demanded more, and rewarded those who dared to stand out. The Apprentice became a global hit syndicated in countries around the world. Overnight, Trump transformed from a name recognized in real estate circles to a pop culture icon. His face, his voice, his persona became inseparable from the idea of bold ambition. For aspiring entrepreneurs, the message was clear. If you are going to do something, do it on a grand scale. Don't just build a business, build a brand. Don't just play the game, change it. Through business empires and television stardom alike, Trump carried the same banner, "Think Big." It was not simply about wealth or entertainment, but about turning oneself into a symbol that could not be ignored. In this phase of his career, Trump elevated his philosophy from a personal mantra to a public message. He was no longer just a developer or a mogul, he was the face of audacity itself, proof that when you aim beyond reason, the world cannot help but pay attention. When Donald Trump first floated the idea of running for president of the United States, many dismissed it as a publicity stunt, another headline grab from a man who thrived on attention. For decades, he had teased the possibility in interviews, dropping hints of what he might do if he ever entered politics. Yet when he came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower in June 2015 to officially announce his candidacy, the world reacted with disbelief. Seasoned politicians scoffed. Media outlets laughed. To them, Trump's bid for the White House was entertainment, not a serious campaign. But once again, Trump leaned on the philosophy that had defined his life, "Think Big." He was not aiming for city council, governor, or senator. He went straight for the highest office in the land. Where others saw impossibility, he saw opportunity. He recognized a deep frustration brewing in the American heartland, a longing for change that the political establishment had failed to answer. Trump seized that energy and magnified it, transforming doubt into momentum. The barriers were immense. He faced an overcrowded Republican primary field filled with experienced politicians. He endured relentless media criticism and skepticism from both parties. Financial backers hesitated, pundits predicted his downfall, and pollsters dismissed his chances. But Trump refused to scale back his ambitions or soften his message. Instead, he doubled down on the biggest dream he could offer the American people, to make America great again. That slogan was more than campaign branding. It was the political embodiment of "Think Big." It was not a policy paper or a cautious promise of incremental change. It was a sweeping, almost audacious vision of national renewal, framed in simple but powerful words that resonated far beyond Washington. Trump was telling voters not just to elect a candidate, but to join a movement to dream of a stronger, prouder, wealthier America. In 2016, against all odds, Donald Trump turned what began as a joke to many into a stunning political upset. He won the Republican nomination, defeated a deeply entrenched opponent in Hillary Clinton, and shocked the world by claiming the presidency. It was the ultimate demonstration of his philosophy that thinking small guarantees obscurity, but thinking big, even when it seems outrageous, can reshape history. For Trump, the campaign trail became his grandest stage yet, and his victory in 2016 was proof that his mantra could transcend business, television, and real estate. Think Big had become a political strategy, one that not only carried him into the Oval Office, but also redefined American politics for a generation. Whether one admired him or despised him, no one could deny that Donald Trump had once again taken the unthinkable and made it real because he dared to dream bigger than anyone believed possible. For all its glamour and triumphs, Trump's philosophy of "Think Big" has never been without its shadows. The very boldness that carried him to towering successes also led him into some of his most painful defeats. Throughout his career, Trump faced multiple business bankruptcies, particularly in the casino industry, where his ventures in Atlantic City crumbled under mounting debt. Critics pointed to these failures as evidence that his vision was more spectacle than substance, accusing him of being reckless, overconfident, and driven by ego rather than strategy. Trump himself never denied that his larger-than-life approach attracted risk. In fact, he often leaned into the controversy. For every headline mocking his bankruptcies or failed projects, he countered with the reminder that daring to dream big meant daring to fall hard. In his view, failure was not proof that Think Big was wrong, but proof that he had been playing on a stage large enough for the world to notice. Playing small, he argued, might keep you safe, but it would also keep you invisible. The criticism of his style extended beyond balance sheets. Detractors labeled him showy, theatrical, even delusional at times. They said the marble and gold, the bold promises, and the constant self-promotion reflected a man obsessed with image. Yet even those critiques underscored his point, thinking big forces people to pay attention. Love him or loathe him, no one could ignore him. From these setbacks, a lesson emerged. Think big does not guarantee success. It does not shield anyone from losses, missteps, or ridicule. But it does guarantee that you will test your limits, face your fears, and learn faster than those who never take the leap. Trump himself once summed it up best in another of his famous quotes, "I like thinking big." If you're going to be thinking anything, you might as well think big. To him, the alternative, thinking small, was simply not worth the effort. In this sense, the failures became part of the philosophy itself. Each bankruptcy, each criticism, each stumble was absorbed into the larger narrative that risk is the price of greatness. Trump's story reminds us that think big is not a magic formula for success. It is a mindset that demands courage, resilience, and the willingness to keep moving forward when the world expects you to retreat. Over the decades, Donald Trump's mantra of think big has evolved from a personal creed into a cultural touchstone. What began as the private philosophy of a boy from Queens grew into a way of thinking that inspired countless entrepreneurs, young dreamers, and even politicians around the world. In boardrooms and classrooms alike, the phrase is often cited as shorthand for ambition without limits, for the courage to chase visions that others might dismiss as impossible. For many young business leaders, think big became a call to action, a reminder that success is rarely born from caution, but from daring ideas pursued with relentless energy. For politicians, it represented the ability to capture imaginations with sweeping promises and bold visions, rather than modest compromises. And for ordinary people, it carried the encouragement to step outside of fear and mediocrity, to embrace the possibility that their lives too could be larger than the circumstances they were born into. This transformation is what makes Think Big more than just a motivational quote. It became a cultural symbol of American audacity, the belief that no dream is too large, no ambition too outrageous if pursued with determination. It embodied both the promise and the peril of reaching higher, the chance to build monuments like Trump Tower, or movements like Make America Great Again, but also the willingness to endure failure and controversy along the way. Even Trump's harshest critics, those who question his methods or reject his politics, rarely deny that he thought bigger than most dared to. His ability to turn words into skyscrapers, television shows, and even presidencies left a mark that cannot be erased. Love him or loathe him, his story stands as a reminder that history remembers those who refuse to think small. Trump's legacy, then, is not only in the buildings that bear his name or the political battles he fought, but in the enduring influence of an idea that to change your world or the world itself, you must first dare to think big. At the heart of Donald Trump's journey lies a lesson far greater than business, politics, or fame. Think big is not about daydreaming without action. It is about daring to set goals so bold they stretch far beyond your limits. It is about refusing to let fear, doubt, or the judgment of others dictate the size of your dreams. Trump's story, with all its victories and setbacks, proves that greatness is never born from thinking small. It comes from having the courage to imagine something larger than yourself and then working relentlessly to bring that vision to life. So now the question turns to you. If it were your life, your dream, your legacy, what would you dare to think big about? Would you build, create, or lead in ways that the world has never seen? Or would you allow the safe path of small thinking to define your story? If this message speaks to you, don't let it stop here. Join us in exploring more powerful philosophies and inspiring stories that challenge us all to rise higher. Be sure to like this video, share it with others who might need encouragement, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next journey into ambition, resilience, and the pursuit of greatness. Together, let's continue to dream boldly, live fully, and above all, think big.